Required minimum distribution can have some consequences in your tax planning and financial planning. What strategies exist for you to limit the impact of RMD out there in the future? I've got that and more coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. All right, we're wrapping up the mini series that we've been doing on required minimum distributions, hitting everything from the basics to more advanced planning strategies. That's what the topic of today's video is. And that is, how can you limit the impact of RMDs and required minimum distributions on your overall financial plan and your tax picture? Let's face it, while there's a benefit in contributing pre-tax to your IRA, to your 401k, those sorts of things, you get the tax benefit up front, it can create some side effects, some ramifications, some consequences out there in retirement when you're forced to. Maybe you don't need to withdraw this much money, but you're forced to withdraw this required minimum distribution. Now, some of these negative consequences, these tax planning issues, it could push you into a higher tax bracket. And it'd be really helpful to avoid or limit the impact of RMD so you weren't pushed into that higher tax bracket. Due to the unique way that Social Security is taxed, could cause you might be in a situation where none of your Social Security is taxed. All of a sudden you start RMDs and a lot of your Social Security becomes taxable because you're having to draw money out of your IRA. So that could be a consequence. You might have qualified dividend or capital gain dollars, so other investment accounts that are causing some things to land on your tax return. And without your RMD, that might have no impact. It might be at the 0% capital gains rate. But because of RMD, maybe it moves it to that 15% capital gains rate. Could also cause you to pay even more as surcharge on your Medicare Part B and Part D via IRMA, income-related monthly adjustment amount. So planning for your RMD all along during your working career is essential. It's important that you're proactive in your tax picture. Despite these consequences, working with your certified financial planner, it very well may be that, you should be contributing pre-tax right now, given your financial situation, your tax bracket, your income situation, and all of that. Hopefully that's combined with a multi-year tax planning, tax strategy, multi-year tax projection, if you will, as well as a 5-factor retirement plan where you can also anticipate, well, what do future tax years look like? And therefore, how would I compare that to today's tax picture and determine whether it makes sense to fund pre-tax or make a different type of contribution? So hopefully that planning is something that you're doing on an ongoing basis with your certified financial planner. But specifically, to touch on some of the options that you have, some of the planning strategies that you can use to limit the impact of your required minimum distribution out there in the future, let's talk about some of those strategies. The first is, instead of funding your retirement accounts using pre-tax dollars, you could fund the Roth side of those retirement accounts. So the Roth IRA, the Roth 401k, the Roth 403b. So making Roth contributions instead of pre-tax contributions, that's sort of the number one and the easiest way to limit future required minimum distributions out there in the future. Why? Because there's no RMD yet, no RMDs on Roth accounts. I say yet because they might require it out there in the future, but even if they did require a withdrawal from your Roth accounts, it wouldn't create the tax ramifications that withdrawing RMD on pre-tax accounts does. So funding Roth accounts instead of pre-tax accounts is one way to limit your RMD out there in the future. Working with your CFP on every single year to determine, well, which one makes the most sense? Should I do pre-tax? Should I do Roth? That's the job of your certified financial planner, doing comprehensive financial planning. Secondarily, and this is also something that your CFP is going to be helping you with, and that is, should you be doing Roth conversions, which is the process of taking pre-tax IRA dollars or pre-tax 401k dollars and shifting them over to the Roth side. So transferring them from pre-tax over to Roth. Anytime money comes out of your pre-tax accounts, it's going to be taxable. So this is a taxable event, but doing so moves money from that pre-tax account into the Roth side, therefore moves money that would otherwise increase your required minimum distribution into an account that has no required minimum distribution. So doing Roth conversions at very specific times, whether that's during a low income year, during your working years, maybe early in retirement before required minimum distributions start, that allows you to shift some dollars from pre-tax that would have an RMD over to Roth that then wouldn't. Work with your certified financial planner. Doing Roth conversions is another way to limit the impact of RMDs out there in the future. A third strategy to limit RMDs is funding an HSA and treating your health savings account like it's a retirement account. Now, not everyone is eligible to make an HSA contribution, but if you are eligible, you're not required to use those dollars right away to fund your out-of-pocket medical expenses. You can. We've done lots of videos on this before, but something to work with your CFP on. See if you should shoebox your HSA instead and invest those dollars for your retirement. Instead of treating your HSA as an emergency fund or an actual like present day health spending account, a health savings account, in treating it instead as a retirement vehicle, having those dollars grow for your retirement and then using those dollars out there in retirement to either reimburse yourself for qualified medical expenses that you had back during your working career or cover medical expenses that you'll inevitably have out there in the future as well. HSAs currently do not have a required minimum distribution. So funding your HSA and treating it like an additional retirement account is also a way to limit or manage the impact of RMDs out there in the future. And then finally, a fourth strategy to limit RMDs out there in the future is actually to limit the impact of them. You can use your required minimum distributions to make charitable donations via what's called a qualified charitable distribution. Having dollars go directly from your IRA, this doesn't count for 401ks, doesn't count for 403bs, it's got to be an IRA, going directly from the IRA to that charity. When it does, that money has come out of your IRA and it actually counts towards your RMD. So that's good. But instead of the money landing in your pocket and then going to the church, it goes directly to the church or to the charity, and therefore it satisfies your RMD, but is not taxable on your tax return. Therefore, prevents you, jumping into the next tax bracket or the other challenges I mentioned with Social Security or dividends and that sort of stuff. So those are the most common strategies that you can implement and you should have awareness on all throughout your working career to help limit and manage RMDs, even if you look and say, well, my RMDs aren't going to be that damaging. I'm going to be using my IRA to help fund, supplement my Social Security. Well, what about if you inherit some dollars from your folks or your spouse's folks, and now those have an RMD? Now, between your RMD and those accounts, is that going to push you into create some adverse tax consequences? So work with your CFP and consider these strategies. Now, there's two others that I'll at least mention, although they're not universally applicable. They're only applicable in very, very specific situations, but they do also help limit your RMD. One of them is you can keep working. Yes, you can keep working. If you keep working past your required beginning date or required minimum distribution age, so 73 or 75, you would still be forced to take a required distribution from your IRAs or from old accounts, but from the 401k or the retirement plan for the company that you're still employed with, your RMD is on hold. That's right, it's on hold until the year that you retire. So if you love what you do, and you're still young and healthy and you're working past your RMD age, know that the 401k or the retirement plan that you have at your employer, you will not have to do a required minimum distribution from that account. You would still from your IRA or other accounts, but not from that employer-sponsored plan. Doesn't apply to everyone. Most of us by that time, 73, 75, are well into retirement, but for those of you still working, that's one way to limit your RMD. And then the second honorable mention, again, doesn't apply to many people, but it's something called a Qualified Longevity Annuity Contract, or QLAC. And there's a special rules within the tax code where you can invest into one of these products, one of these tools, and those dollars for a certain period of time will not have a required minimum distribution requirement. Not forever, but for a certain period of time. Now, you might hear that and say, oh, that sounds great. I want to do that. Well, the reason why it only applies to just a few folks or circumstances is because there's lots of limitations. Number one, there's a limit on how much you can even invest into these types of tools. So there's one limitation. Second limitation is your investment choices within those tools. So you're very limited on what your investment choices are, and therefore limited on the amount of growth and interest you can earn in these tools. And then lastly, you're limited on your access to those dollars in that QLAC. And again, at this age, in your 70s or early 80s, it's not very appealing to have a bunch of dollars or a chunk of dollars that you are not able to access, even if that means those dollars are delaying a required minimum distribution. That is not an exhaustive list. It's not an all-encompassing list, but those are some of the ideas to help you limit the impact of future RMDs. But here's the thing, guys. Doing ongoing comprehensive financial planning with your CFP all throughout your career is going to help you stay ahead of those options and stay ahead of these planning opportunities so that you don't get out there into retirement or close to RMD age or into RMD age and all of a sudden look and say, well, I don't have a lot of choices now. I wish I would have been more proactive and utilize some of the other planning strategies at my disposal years ago to help limit the impact and tax consequences of RMD. So, as always, work with your certified financial planner on that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, you can contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there as well, or send us an email, info@korhorn.com. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.